Committee, Paul Ryan. Congressman Ryan, good morning to you, sir.
Morning, Chuck.
Let's talk about how, give me an idea, if you have in your head, of what you think would be the ideal way a state might use your idea, your plan here, to create an anti-poverty program that would work.
The ideal way would be similar to how Catholic Charities already does it in states like Wisconsin, but without federal assistance. Lutheran Social Services, America Works. So there are already service providers out there, public, private, not-for-profit, charities, for-profit, that do a very good job of doing customized case management, of tailoring benefits to a certain need of a particular person. Here's the problem, Chuck. Poverty is a very complex problem. Each person has a different, unique circumstance and need, yet the federal government treats it all the same. And so the vision here is let's customize aid to the person's need to focus on getting them from where they are to where they want to be, which is a good job and a good career. And by having local casework management, a person working with this individual, customizing the aid to meet their need. Maybe she needs more, child care and transportation. Maybe this person needs more skills training and education. Customizing it so that you can get them with their plan to get their life back on track. The problem is, Chuck, our safety net isn't really working the way it ought to be. We have all these government programs with all these rules and regulations. They're stovepipes of formulaic, fragmented programs that don't make a lot of sense. And the whole argument here is if the status quo would be working, I'd be supporting it. It's not. We had the highest poverty rates in a generation, yet we're spending unprecedented dollars on these programs. So let's take those dollars and spend it more effectively to actually focus on results, outcomes, getting people actually out of poverty and customizing benefit to each person's particular needs.
How much do you think the increase in poverty is simply the Great Recession? And that are we looking at this in a moment in time and saying, you know what, this is a huge rise now. This will subside on its own regardless of what the federal government does? No,
I think there's some cyclicality to it, like you just described, but it's really actually what we call pretty sticky. These rates have been stubbornly high for far too long, and there are unique circumstances in each person's life that irrespective of the recession, have propped up high poverty rates. So no, I don't think that this is simply because of the recession, and I do believe that these 20th century programs written at a time when you had this sort of government one-size-fits-all notion are ineffective for the 21st century at a time when we see great success stories out there. The point is, Chuck, I've been traveling the country for the last year and a half, and there are fantastic things happening out in our country, and we should empower those good works, listen to the boots on the grounds, and get local service providers, people who actually know the people in poverty, know where the jobs are, know how to get them on their feet and back together again, work with them and not against them or displace them, which is unfortunately one of the inadvertent results of today's federal poverty programs.
Obviously, the concern with some Democrats on this plan, particularly of empowering the states, is that not every state will be as compassionate as you are. And not every state, and so how do you make sure that that isn't the case? And we don't see, I mean, you look at some of these states, you look at where they've cut benefits and the poverty level has grown, where they do have some control to take federal dollars and cut it.
Yeah, so this isn't just your generic, father's block grant. This is very different. It's a collapsing of the funding streams to go to the person, but there are requirements, a lot of federal requirements. And first of all, the federal government has to approve the plan in the first place to make sure that the state has an effective plan in place to get these dollars and these services to the person in need. They can't take the money and spend it on something else.
Is that is this a new, would this be part of HHS or part of,
it would be an existing agency here in the federal government.
Which
the point is, that's something we can figure out later, probably HHS, but that's, again, those particular details are clearly something we can get to. The point, let me get to the point, Chuck. The point is, you have to target to these people in need. It's got to meet these requirements. Oh, and by the way, we need to measure. That's the other thing, is we don't really measure whether these programs today are working or not. So we need to have third-party measurement so that we don't have a service provider or a government cooking the books. We need objective measurements to see what works so we can learn lessons on how to improve going forward. And I think that's just the outcome-based kind of policy making we need to get to these days, which we are not doing.
Now, it's interesting, your poverty plan is numbers-wise sort of conflicts with your budget plan. In your budget plan, you call for some cuts in certain anti-poverty programs, including food stamps. You're not calling for that here. You're actually calling for some expansion of the earned income tax credit. So, which Paul Ryan proposal is the one? Does this mean you would change your budget proposal to reflect your new poverty plan?
No, I didn't want to get into a debate over the funding levels of the status quo. We could keep doing that over and over again. I want to talk about how to reform the status quo. The fact is that this program could occur under any funding level. I just didn't want to get into this debate about how much money do we spend on X, Y, and Z existing program in government. That's basically what we fight around here. I want to focus on how do we change these government programs? How do we reform these things?
So we should ignore your budget proposal on some of these programs?
No, Chuck, what I'm trying to tell you is let's not focus on dollars and cents of the status quo. Let's focus on reforming these programs, reforming so that they work more effectively, and then we can decide if we want to what level of funding is appropriate. And on the earned income tax credit, I'm proposing specific spending cuts to pay for the expansion of the earned income credit. And the reason I think we should expand the earned income credit is I think that's a successful program of looking at all that the federal government does in the poverty space.
Right.
The EITC is pretty effective because it makes work pay. It brings people into the workforce. And of all the people who are less likely to be in the workforce, 20% of childless adults between the age of 21 and 25 aren't working or aren't even in school. So this is a population that we want to get into the workforce, and raising the EITC, I think, raises the incentives and the rewards and work and helps bring people into the workforce.
Before I let you go, a lot of chatter about congressional gridlock. One specific item that seems to be on the Republican House agenda these days, this lawsuit against the president. Is this a productive thing for House Republicans to be focused on in an election year?
We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can juggle a lot of bills. We're working on border security, foreign policy, appropriations, and many things at one time. So it's not as if this just displaces action on other items. We are very concerned about the lawlessness of the administration exceeding the executive branch's authority. The traditional constitutional way would be for Congress to exercise its power through the power of the purse. Unfortunately, the Senate is not interested in maintaining the prerogatives and the authority of the legislative branch, and so that's why the Speaker feels compelled to do this.
And you support the Speaker in this?
I will vote for it.
Okay. Paul Ryan.